Welcome to Shantalakshmi IAS Academy, Bahujana Bharat IAS. Good evening, all of you. సో ఒక ఐఎఫ్ఎస్ ఆఫీసర్ కావాలంటే ఎలా ఉంటుంది జర్నీ? ఓకే, తన మాటల్లో వినండి. నౌ ఉత్పల్, ప్లీజ్ స్టార్ట్.
Thank you so much for the introduction, Vijay sir. I joined your session 5 minutes back, and I was going through, I was trying to understand what you were saying. I couldn't understand it completely, but yeah, what I understood is you were giving a sort of a summary to all the aspirants about what other speakers they have been talking about. So it was a refresher for me as well. In any case, so is there anything specific which you would like me to talk about, or do you want to, which you guys are interested in, or do you want me to talk about my experience during preparation or during training? So I understand that if other speakers have already talked about the preparation phase, it might become a bit redundant and not very relevant for most of the aspirants who have joined here. So if there is anything specific which you are interested in, so I think a dialogue will be a much better way to go about it.
First of all, just read in the chat box. They are asking few questions, and your journey. First of all, whatever the journey you experienced in your life in this till this present stage. Okay, what happened in your life? How you started? How you thought about civil services? Just to share those incidents. After that, they'll give you some inputs like questions.
Okay, great. Yeah, I have already started getting questions actually. Okay, great. So I started my preparation in 2015, and one of my primary reasons, one of my primary motivations towards this was that since a very young age, I've been very interested in international affairs. I remember when I used to get newspapers in my house back in 2004, 2005. I used to follow events which were happening in Afghanistan. The US had invaded Afghanistan, US had invaded Iraq, and there were many controversies associated with it, many prison controversies, human rights controversies, then the oil controversies. And I used to find it very interesting going through the articles of the major international publishing houses as well as famous diplomats, and their analysis and their perspective on this entire issue. So that was one of the reasons. I was always interested in international relations, but that is not something which I fully recognized or realized till I got in college. So I remember when I used to read Hindu, when I just started preparation, I wasn't really sure which service I would be eventually opting for. And so at that time, I remember the first page I would open in the Hindu paper would be the international relations paper, because that is where I would start my day with. And eventually, over a period of time, that is where I developed my strength as well. My friends also, who started preparation with me, they also suggested that, I think this is some place where you are very clear about. So if you have to, if you are preparing for civil services and if you are really thinking of going for it, you should opt for foreign service. So that is the reason I kept foreign service as my first preference. And after my college, I graduated in 2015. I came to Delhi and I started my preparation in earnest over there. And I joined a coaching center for that. And I remember initially it was quite tough because there were many people who had been preparing for 2 years, 3 years, and their knowledge base was always much better than mine. So I remember that I used to wonder why they know so much and why I don't, because I have also been following newspapers. And so where does the difference lie? And yes, I'm getting a text from Bhavya. She asks me which coaching center I joined. Bhargav, I'm sorry. I joined KSG. So yeah. Okay, anyways, yeah, I'm getting a lot of questions. I'll go through them one by one. So let me finish my train of thoughts. So I joined KSG, and then I started my preparation, and like I faced a lot of difficulties because preparation with people who have already been in the process for 2-3 years, it's very difficult initially. But then I also realized like I couldn't get through the exam in my first attempt. I cleared my prelims, I couldn't clear the mains. So, and I realized at that point of time that my preparation was very specialized. It was not from a generalist perspective. I realized that if I would be going through topics, if I would choose any topic, let's say governor system, so I would go too much into depth. Like I'd go into the history of it, like what was the situation during the British era, then what components of the governor system in those era were carried over in our constitution, and the different acts and laws associated with it, and the different judgments, Supreme Court judgments associated with it. And eventually I realized that uh, such a detailed preparation actually creates a problem, because in the exam, it's very difficult to prioritize what you want to say. And writing a specialist answer for one question gives off the kind of preparation that you want to specialize. But our job, the basic requirement of a civil service job is to be a generalist. Like, see, after getting through the exam, everyone has the opportunity to become a specialist. Like they give you study leave. You can always join a university. You can go to Ivy League. You can choose a degree, economics or anything else. Like you can go for science also if you are interested in it. And then you can use all of your specialist knowledge into administration. But the basic requirement of a civil servant is to make life easier for the elected class. So for that, for the specialist work, there are scholars, and the elected class is there to understand the needs of the people. So we are the sort of the middlemen who stand between the scholars, the specialists, and the elected classes who might not be very much aware of, who are definitely aware of the ground situation, but might not be aware of the ins and outs. So for that reason, being a generalist and being very good in it is very important. And so I had a lot of discussions with my friends over this, and then I went and talked to my seniors as well. And then I realized that, okay, I need to change my preparation for it. So at that time, I realized that UPSC is not as arbitrary as people make it sound. So I've heard many people say that, oh, you have no idea the amount of marks you'll get depends on the amount of salt in the samosa of the person who's checking your answers, but it doesn't work that way. It's it's a premier organization. UPSC is one of the most well-known and renowned organizations in our country. So there is nothing arbitrary in the process. And I understand many people might say that, once a person clears the exam, it becomes easier for them to say that it's not arbitrary, or it's like there is a concrete system to it. But I think even if I wouldn't have cleared my exam in my second attempt, I knew that I would have performed better than my first attempt, and not because my knowledge had increased. It's because I understood the requirements of the exam better. And maybe not second attempt, then third attempt, even if not third attempt, then fourth attempt, but it's a process. Some people, they understand early. If they understand early, they clear it in the first attempt. But for some people, it takes some more time. And that's why, this is the reason why many people will say that, oh, I cleared this exam, but then I don't think I deserve it. There is something called imposter syndrome. Like we always, suspect our success because we've always been told that there are always people who are better than us. That one aspect of it, because we are not very confident about our own capabilities. The other reason is that there are many people who are actually specialists in subjects. And when we try to compare ourselves with them, we feel that we are not capable enough or not up to the mark. But it's just that people who prepare for civil services from a very specialized perspective, they don't understand, like they probably don't get it fully, that civil service is actually looking for generalists and not specialists. Yeah. So yeah, and then yeah, obviously after understanding all of this in my second attempt, I cleared the exam next year in 2017, and I got into IFS. And after IFS, I chose Chinese as my compulsory foreign language. To learn Chinese, I was in Taiwan, and I have just completed 2 years of my language course, and now I'm back in India. So, so my next posting is in Shanghai, and I'll be joining within 1 or 2 months. So I'm during the transit phase. Yeah. So that has been my journey till now.
Wow, nice. So you got top marks in interview, right?
Sir, you're not audible.
Right. Not. You are getting right. You got top marks in your interview.
Battery 90%. Connected to CTOP F0 DP0.
Oh, there seems to be some problem. Yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah, yes.
Yeah. Fine. So you got top marks in your interview, and how was the interview actually? How did you get maximum marks in interview?
I scored 193 in my interview, and I think the highest in my year was 2010. So there was still some gap between me and the person who got the highest. But yeah, my interview process was also quite interesting because I think initially, like we had a gap of about 2 months between the declaration of mains result and 2 or 3 months between the declaration of mains result and my interview date. So initially, I was trying to go through all the books and revise everything. Like I was preparing for mains part 2. But I realized that I realized after some guidance from my seniors that that is not the way to go about it, because the knowledge always gets tested in the mains and the prelims. So it's always necessary. Hello, am I still visible?
Yeah. Yes. Got it. Yeah, Utpal. Getting my voice?
Hello.
Yeah, Utpal.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We just yeah.
Getting. Yeah.
So yes. So during my interview phase, I realized that what they're actually trying to understand is like they are basically, if you say that they are trying to eliminate something, they're basically trying to find out if you have some biases. Like as a civil servant, you're supposed to be working with the public, very closely with the public, and at that point of time, you cannot have biases in your thinking. I think that's because since they work so closely with the public, any sort of bias that has the tendency to have an impact on a very wide group of people. So if one is incapable, you can still depend on other people. But if you have a bias, it becomes very difficult for someone to point it out, because it's a very it's not something which is very clearly visible. And laws and regulations also cannot very clearly handle that. So I think the interview process is more about understanding the kind of thinking a person has, and if there are any logical fallacies in their thinking. So I remember one of my friends had an interview where he supported a policy at one stage during the initial part of the interview, and towards the end a similar question was asked, and it was said that this policy is implemented in some XYZ other country. And obviously the interviewers were very careful, like they hid it very carefully, and then they asked his opinion. It was the same question, only the exterior was different, and he answered in the opposite. He gave the exact opposite answer, and then they asked him, oh, okay, yeah, so but then initially you answered this way and now you're answering this way. So there's obviously like inconsistency in your thinking. So like during the interview, it's not so much your knowledge. Like if you don't know something, it's fine, just humbly say that I don't know the answer. But if there is inconsistency in your thinking, if you're biased towards a group, a social group, or a regional group, then that is not something which the interviewers like very much, and that gets reflected poorly in your marks as well. So before the interview, about 10 days before the interview, I just gave up. I didn't study anything else, and I started reading Vivekananda. Like, it might sound surprising, but I think I read this book, Karma Yoga, from Vivekananda. I had read this before also. My grandfather used to recite it to me when I was young, and but obviously I was too young to understand and make sense of it when I was very little. But before the exam, you reach a certain kind of state where you become more receptive to different ideas and more complex ideas as well. So I think that calmed me down a lot, and I used to focus on my health as well. So I used to go running every day for 2 hours, one and a half hour, and I used to talk to my parents and all that. And I had very good friends from college, and I used to talk to them regularly as well. And talking to them often made me realize, because they are people who, your close friends are people who will criticize you directly. They won't mince their words, and then you realize, oh yes, like this sort of thinking is wrong. Yes, correct. So I think talking to people who actually give you productive feedback. Yeah, mock interviews are also excellent, because mock interviews also, the feedback is generally very direct and very pointed. So I remember I had a mock interview in some coaching institute. I think it was in KSG itself, yes. And they invited a former.
We had interview, mock interview.
Yes, yes, in Sankalp also. Yes, yes.
We have our mock interview also, right? Do you remember?
Yeah.
Yes, yes. Yeah.
There was one mock interview in which they had called a retired diplomat. And so like, he asked me, okay, your first preference is IFS, so there is a good chance that you might be coming into the IS, but into the IFS. But then, see, you are going to become a diplomat, so you need to think from a very broad perspective and not from a very ground. Like, you cannot be very much concerned with what is happening at the district level or the state level. So that was a trick question. I realized that later on, because all services, they have a public profile. It cannot be said that only IS or IPS, they are the ones who interact with people at the ground level. What foreign service officers, the policies which they need to implement in the international sphere, they also impact people who are living in the ground level. So I told him something like this, and then he realized, oh yes, that was a trick question. Like, thank God you understood it. So I think going for mock interviews also helped me a lot, and mostly it was talking to friends, because their feedback is generally unfiltered and very, like, it might hurt you, but then it hurts for the right reason.
So actually, when did you get this thought to start preparation? Generally, exactly in which class you started this preparation?
I started in 2015. I was in the final year of my college.
That's it.
So yeah. So at that time, as I explained when I was explaining towards the initial part of my video, that I was always interested in foreign affairs and international relations, and I was a civil engineer in college. And over 4 years, I realized, like, that is not something which I see myself doing in the future. So at that time, there was a phase when I was quite confused about my life as well. I didn't know, like, okay, I'm interested in international affairs, but what can I do about it? And like, obviously, IS seems very much there, the UPSC exam, that it's there, but like, as I talked about the imposter syndrome, that happens when you become successful. But a similar form of the syndrome is there, like when you try to attempt for success, like you always suspect yourself, like, you know, you always think whether you'll be able to reach that level. So uh, I think I started in 2015, but like properly, I think in 2016, once I joined my coaching. That is when I realized, okay, competition is heavy and I cannot be bothered with thoughts like whether I'm capable for it or not. First, I need to prepare and then I need to decide later on whether I'm capable.
Yeah, you can read in the chat box also.
Yes. I think I'm getting a few questions on PSIR.
Acha, right.
Yeah, so yeah, I chose political science as my subject in my second attempt. In my first attempt, I had chemistry, and I had chemistry because I really liked chemistry. But then I also realized that taking a science optional or a human or a engineering optional, that has some issues, because my knowledge in chemistry, I cannot use it for GS or for interview. So that has humanities optional always have an added advantage in that sense. And there are other issues, there is some normalization and all that. So that always plays into your mind as well. So then I realized that, okay, like I should take a chemistry optional. I should take a humanities optional, and the optional which was quite close to the service which I wanted to go for was PSIR. So I chose PSIR, and someone asked me how to start PSIR optional. So see, PSIR optional, this thing. So one of my friend, she had joined a coaching in Delhi. So I didn't have time to start coaching myself, because by the time the results come, you need to start preparing for the prelims. So I asked her for her notes, and I went through her notes. I think it was Shubhra Ranjan ma'am's notes. And I think there are other institutes as well. But what I realized when I was preparing is that the content is too much and I won't be able to finish all of it. So I prioritize. PSIR syllabus is also huge. And yes, someone says IR is vast. Yes, correct. So like PSIR section, first paper, section B, I think it's completely IR. So for that, I depended primarily on my UPSC notes. And like for the other aspects, for the political aspect of it and some other aspects of it, I depended on Shubhra Ranjan ma'am's notes. And I used the question papers, previous year's question papers, very well, because when I would solve the question papers, all the model answers of those question papers, I would write down like famous sayings or famous theories associated with it, and I would use them liberally in my answers. So I think that is how I got through. PSIR is general studies plus content of thinkers and theories in a very mathematical, simplistic sense. So a generalist perspective will also work in PSIR, provided you at least have a basic understanding of many theories and the content of many international organizations, publications, or thinkers. That should be good enough. Okay. Yeah, the messages are too quick actually. Okay, someone says, "Sir, I have a doubt." One sec. So, is there a way to stop the message? What would you have done now if you had not cracked UPSC? Oh, okay, that's a very interesting question. So it was only my second attempt. I think I would have given at least one or two more attempts. If I wouldn't have gone through, then like I studied engineering, so I think engineers, like the least they can do is work in the statistics field, or you know, like work in the computer engineering field. So I would have managed. And I was also preparing for some other state PCS exam as well, although I hadn't given them. So I would have given other government exams also, and I would have tried to see how far I get in them. And sir, is there any difficult question for you in your interview? Yeah, actually, see, it has been more than 2 years since I gave my interview, so I don't remember them completely. But yes, I remember the last question which they asked. So they asked me a lot of questions, and then when I was leaving, they said that, okay, like, we want to ask you one final question. So they asked me, so there are many issues which are going on in the world right now. There is terrorism, there is climate change, there are so many issues and all that. So which issue do you feel that is the greatest issue? So I said, sir, I think there has been a tendency between major countries as well as minor countries of the world to put their interest first and not the global interests. Because at that time, the US president was also there, and many other countries also had issues in that. So I think at that time, the US president had withdrawn from the Paris Climate Agreement. So I think this was asked in that context. So I told them, yes, I think the tendency of countries to put their interest first and global interest later on, that has been creating an issue. Because see, all these major issues. So they asked me, but then the people who came before me, they talked about concrete things like terrorism and climate change and pollution, overpopulation, and those issues. And I told them that, sir, I feel that all these issues are global problems. It's not a problem of a single country. And as long as we don't handle them globally, it will be difficult to handle. It will be difficult for any one country, any single country to handle it. And I think that is something which more or less convinced them, even though they seemed a little bit they didn't seem very convinced by the answer which I gave them initially. But I think the later explanation which I gave them, that more or less convinced them. So I think this is one part of the interview where I was also confused, like whether I should actually speak about what I think, or should I speak about whether should I say something which seemed very relevant, but not actually right, or maybe less right than the other answer. Okay. So I have a doubt. The UPSC branch allocate IS, IPS, and IRS, or we can choose that which we have interest. Yes. So Pavani, she asked me this doubt. So the UPSC allocates IS, IPS, IRS, or we can choose which we. Yeah, you can definitely choose. So before you give the exam, they'll ask you for your list of preferences, and based on your marks, if you have higher marks, then you can get whatever you choose. If you have less marks, then and if the positions in the other branches they get filled, then you'll have to settle for one of your lower preferences. That thing is always there. What? Okay, advantages and disadvantages of PSIR. So okay, disadvantage of PSIR is very less. The main disadvantage is it's a huge syllabus, and it takes time to finish it. I think my chemistry syllabus was much smaller than the PSIR syllabus. And the other disadvantage is there are too many things to remember. Like you already have to remember so much from GS, and added to that, like you need to remember a lot of thinkers and a lot of political theories. So it gets difficult. But I think the advantages are much more than the disadvantages. The advantage, I think, especially I've seen engineers, they excel in PSIR. Like it's not something which I have made a study of, so I'm not sure if it's correct, but I get a feeling that engineers, they do well in PSIR primarily because you need to connect a lot of dots, and in many cases it comes out as a science optional in that regard. So if you understand how to connect the dots, so it becomes like a maths problem. Like, okay, this is the problem. So you add this, you put this, add this, subtract this, divide by this, and then you get this result. So I think that is where PSIR is very good. Like there is a very logical process to it. And in some other optionals, like there is a way to write it. And that becomes very subjective because all teachers, they have their own opinions about it. People who have cleared the exam, they have their own opinion about it. But I think in PSIR, it's more or less understood. Like the structure, I think that in PSIR, they have understood like what is the requirement of answers. Okay. What was your marks in UPSC? Oh, I don't remember. Aditya IS, yes, I don't remember. I've put it on an article which I wrote online. So like you can even get there if you, like, why Chinese? Sai Karthik. Okay. Chinese. So see, for India in the international sphere, our neighborhood is the most important region. And China is our biggest neighbor. So for that reason, I felt that and also the balance of power has been slowly moving towards China. So for that reason, I felt that I should be choosing Chinese. That is always good for that will be good for my career, as well as I've always been interested in East Asian culture as well. Other than Chinese, I've always been interested in Japanese culture, Korean culture as well. So like being in East Asia, that gives me an opportunity to explore them in a better way. Note making tips. Okay, so someone asked me about note making tips. So in my first attempt, so I made this mistake of writing very exhaustive notes, which eventually didn't help me out a lot. So in my second attempt, I tried to go for a more demand-based approach. So I've written an article on Insights on India. If you guys have time, you can go through it. So in my second attempt, I tried to analyze questions for myself. Like I wouldn't try and search for questions from coaching centers or from online resources. I tried to make questions of my own. Like if there is some law which has been passed, like I'll try and think myself, like, okay, why was this law passed? And what are the advantages and disadvantages of this law? And is there a way to improve it? And so I did this for about 3-4 months. Or, you know, if there is an international event has happened, I would ask myself that, you know, okay, if this has happened, like not only ask myself, we can always do the thinking process, but what I did was write it down, like whatever the thoughts I had in my mind, and I would write it down in a point-wise format, like 4 points, 5 points. So after I had a sufficient content, sufficient amount of knowledge in the basic questions, which were or the basic events which are happening throughout India, then I would mix and match the questions. So I remember at that time, the Aadhaar issue was very prominent. So like I would try to mix it with something like international relations, like, you know, okay, like if we pass the Aadhaar bill, what kind of impact does it have on India's international standing? And then I would analyze it. Oh, okay, yes, India is a democratic country, and then Aadhaar bill has privacy issues, and we have signed some conventions which uphold the right to privacy. So like how does it play out in that ways? And then I would analyze it that way, and then I would write down like 3-4 points which I feel that will have a positive impact on India's international image and a negative impact on India's international image. And that is how I figured out how to mix and match different answers. So mixing and matching different types of questions, that gives you the advantage of never feeling that you are getting a question which is completely new. So that is something which I would suggest everyone should do. Like you can always solve questions of coaching centers or online websites, but that is a question which someone is giving it to you, and that question will never be your own. But if you prepare questions by yourself and then you try to solve it, that question is your own, and the answer is much closer to you than answers which you have written for other websites, other sources, other materials. So that is an added advantage. So that is how I made the notes also. Like I would never write down that, okay, this event happened and these are the events which happened. Like if there is an event which is happening, I generally would make a question of it and then relate it to some other incident which happened earlier. Okay, what else? How was the training? So the training was good in Labasna. In 3 months, Labasna training was very intensive. Like obviously on social media we get to see the posts of people enjoying and going for trips and all that, but it wasn't that. Like our course was quite hectic. We had to, like they would make us wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning. Then we had to go running or yoga, and then we came back. We had to quickly have breakfast and then like go for our classes, and then the classes would end at around 4:30, 5 o'clock. After that, some of us we went for some sports or something. Some of us we'd watch movies or something. So, and it was I think a bit regimented also, because I remember when we were in Labasna, we weren't allowed to enter the mess if we were not dressed in formals. So like after coming back from classes, many of us we used to go running or we would play some sports. And when we would come back, it would be a very hard task for us to again take a bath and get into our formals and go to the mess. So that was, I think that is one of the more interesting incidents of Labasna training. But it's good, like you meet people from all over the country, you meet people from all over, from different professions, different services. And the Institute Labasna also encourages people to showcase their talent. So there are many opportunities to do that as well. So I think the training was very good in Labasna. Then FSI training, it's more focused. It's more focused on international affairs. So we had visits from diplomats, former diplomats, Indian diplomats, as well as ambassadors of foreign countries who came to talk to us and share their experiences. And during FSI training, we also had attachments like army attachment, state attachment, and we went to parliament for a parliament attachment. So all these attachments, they give you a more broad-based idea of policy making in India. And since border issues are always concern in the international sphere, international as well as defense sphere, so I think the army attachment was very helpful in that regard, because we actually got to see what happens at the ground level. And that ties to the question which was asked to me by an ex-diplomat during my interview, who said that, well, you shouldn't be concerned about ground level situations. But I knew then during my mock interview, that what he was saying is incorrect. It was a trick question, and I got to see it during my interview when I actually went to the border and I saw what the soldiers they face on a day-to-day basis. And language training, so I did my language training in Taipei, and it had its own challenges, because Chinese is not an easy language to learn. It is a character-based language, and it's a tonal language. So they have 4 different tones, and a slight change in tones changes the meaning completely. So learning a new language is always a challenge. Learning a new language, which is considered to be one of the most difficult languages in the world, that is another challenge in itself. But the pedagogy in the university which we attended, that was good. So I think in 2 years, we have been capable of conversational Chinese. And since my next posting is in Shanghai, where they speak Chinese, so I feel that in the next 3 years or so, I'll be able to like I'll probably be able to reach about 70%, 70 to 75% level of native. So it's always a good skill to have knowledge of any other language. So I think the language training was also good in that regard. So which state are you? From which state are you? I'm from Assam. So my family is in Assam, but I grew up in Sikkim. Advantage. Okay, I had, which is the toughest part of the examination. Okay, Akshit. Nice. So I feel that the toughest part is mains, because actually I feel that nowadays it has changed a bit. I think the toughest part is prelims, because the questions which are being asked in prelims are very difficult, and oftentimes it comes down to luck. Like if someone has read it, then they know. If they don't, so it doesn't really, it's not a very good test of the capabilities of a person. But in spite of that, even though the questions in prelims have become more difficult, I still feel that the mains still requires, is still the toughest part, because first of all, it's more rigorous. It's not a simple tick which you need to make and you get through. You need to actually sit down and write and prepare for it. Secondly, your thought process gets tested in mains. And mains also consists of the highest percentage, highest amount of marks of the final marks. So preparing for mains, it's tough because it's more effort is required, and also because it has a huge disproportionate bearing on your marks. What was your UG program? Okay, I did civil engineering from BITS Pilani. What are your hobbies? My hobbies. Okay, I like jogging. I like jogging, and I'm very interested in photography as well. So I do that also time to time. And before COVID, I used to travel around and take pictures of different places I've been to. That is also. And I used to play the guitar also, but nowadays obviously it's become very difficult because of the work pressure. So yeah, I think these 3-4 things are mostly things which keep me distracted. What is the toughest part in the exam? Yeah, I answered that. What else? Are logical fallacies considered blunders in interview perspective? Yes, absolutely. Like you can't say something initially and then, like later on you say something else. For instance, there was this famous question. There was a circular fallacy, which one of my friend, circular argument, which my friend made. I don't remember the exact subtleties of the argument, but I think it was pointed out to him in the interview that you are saying something, but the cause is something which but yeah, like my point is, yes, they are considered as blunders. Like you can have simplistic thinking, that is fine. If you have a complicated view of the world, like probably you understand more, that is also good. But you cannot have an inconsistent view. Like you can't say something and then later on you refute yourself, because it gets tiring for you, because there are 5 people who are asking questions, but there is only one person who's trying to remember all the answers which you have given. So yeah, you need to be very careful of that. You don't know, like that's fine. But if you know, and make sure that it's consistent throughout your interview. Is it mandatory to learn a foreign language? Yes. After getting into the service, all of us in foreign service had to opt for one CFL. What else? What are the best optional subjects? Best optional subjects, I feel that humanities optionals are generally better than science optionals or engineering optionals, and not because they are tougher or easier or normalization and all that. I'm not getting into all of that. I feel humanities optionals are better because they have a very good overlap with GS subjects, and one reinforces the other. So that has a very good effect on your overall marks. Like there are obviously people who get very good marks in optionals, but in optional there is a strategy that, you know, like you either go big or you go home. So you get at least like above 315 optionals, then it's okay. If you get, or you get somewhere in the lower 200s. If you get into lower 200s, then yeah, it becomes very difficult to clear DS exam. And in humanities optional, I think the marks are more, the spread is low. Like the standard deviation is low. So it's close to 310, 320. So that ways, I think it's always better. You're not taking a risk in humanities optionals. So did you start it? So let me check. Scrolling is a bit difficult in this. So did you start your preparation after or before engineering? I started my preparation before I graduated from college. So in the last 6 months of my college, I had already started my preparation. But then that preparation which I was doing alone, that doesn't really count, because I had absolutely no idea what the competition was like. Why did you choose IFS? And in few years you just prepared and cracked UPSC. Yeah, it took me 2015, 2016, 2016, 2017. It took me 3 years to complete the process. So I wouldn't say it's few years. Many people get through in the first attempt. But then I think it's the time is not so much important as you know, understanding the requirements of the exam. Like some people, they understand it immediately. For some people, they take some time. So and that's not a indication of their capability. Someone getting earlier or someone getting later, that's not an indication of their capability. It's just some people, they understand the requirements of the exam better, but that doesn't mean that in future they'll become good officers. And some people who understand it later, that absolutely doesn't mean that later on during the careers they won't be as good of an officer as the person who got in earlier. They decide to allocate. Okay, so will they decide to if you have to choose okay, K. Rishi, he asked me if you have the chance to choose the services again, what will you choose from IS and IV? Yeah, I think my initial motivations of taking IFS, they haven't changed. And so if for some reason I have to give the exam again, so I think I'll still choose IFS. I was very clear why I wanted IFS, and before I opted for the service, I also had extensive discussions with my seniors as well. So that ways I knew that what I'm getting into. So once you have that sort of clarity in your mind, I don't think, like, even when you face those kind of difficulties, you'll not waver. So many people, they choose services based on the perception, maybe in the society, family, online, whatever. So I think perceptions, okay, they matter, but then, you know, it is also a logical fallacy, because there is absolutely no study behind it, and it's based on hunches. So you cannot take such a concrete decision as choosing your career based on hunches. So the more information you have, the better it will be for you. So definitely go and talk to as many people as you can. Talk to your teachers, talk to seniors who have already been in the service for a few years. And nowadays, it's very accessible also because of social media. So yeah, talk to them and then decide. and not on basis of what you feel is the best. Okay, so okay, yeah, my first preference was IFS from Suhana. Yeah, IFS was my first preference. What is the best newspaper to prepare for IS? Ramesh from Ramesh. Any newspaper works actually. Like initially, I remember during my preparation days, I used to go through the Hindu. But then I realized later on that the major events will be covered in all the newspapers, all the good newspapers. And you might say that some newspapers they tend to attract better authors and they write it from a more specialist perspective, but then you don't need a specialist perspective into it. You just need 5 good points. And those 5 good points are available in all newspapers. So if you actually sit down and you think and you have a sufficiently developed knowledge base, you will understand that you can come with 5 good points yourself. So I used to do this thing. Like this is a good opportunity for me to share a strategy as well. So you guys must have gone through the interview. Sorry, not the interview. The UPSC syllabus. So the UPSC syllabus in itself is a work of art because it has topics, like it has a wide range of topics. So I remember like when I had to write an answer and I didn't know what points to write and I need a minimum of 5. So and it has to be from different perspectives. It cannot be from a single perspective because a multi-dimensional answer means more marks. So I used to go in accordance to the UPSC syllabus. Like GS paper 1, the first part is culture. So let's say they ask about agriculture of India, like why is mechanization so low? So I would try and write a point from the cultural perspective, then from the historical perspective, then from the geographical perspective, then from international perspective. Then I'd go to paper 2, like from the I tried and write something from the constitutional perspective, then from international relations perspective. Then I'd go to paper 3. Like I've already made, even if I can't prepare an answer from each perspective, I already have written a multi-dimensional answer because I've already made 4 or 5 points out of the first 2 papers. And in the next 2 papers also you can write, like everything can be connected to everything once you have that sufficient knowledge base. Like you can analyze mechanization from the ethical perspective as well, that in many societies land is considered to be a god, similar to God, and many communities they don't want to defile it by using machines and all that. And so that sort of thing. So once you have all that perspective, it becomes very easy to understand and write an answer and prepare like 200 to 50 words within the short time frame. So, and I still use that UPSC syllabus even now. So for my CFL exam, I had to write a topic on the Great Wall of China. So I use the similar strategy which I used during the UPSC days. Like, okay, what is the historical significance of Great Wall of China? What is the cultural significance? Then tourism, then political, then economic, all of that. And that always gives a more multidimensional answer. And even when talking to people, yeah, you can use that UPSC syllabus. Like if you talk to someone, like talk to them from a multidimensional perspective, it gives more weight to the points which you're trying to make. Of course, like having a very strong logical base, that is always important, but having variety in your answers, that is also very important. Whom did you regard as your inspiration when you were growing up? So I didn't have a single person who inspired me. So when I was very young, I think my dad was my inspiration. like I really admired how much work and effort. He's also a government servant. How much work and effort he put into it. And I grew up in Sikkim where it used to get very cold. And I remember sometimes he would come back at 8 o'clock at night, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night after finishing his work. And and he used to like, but even after that, like he tried to find sufficient time for us. So after 9 o'clock, like he never brought his work home. Like he'll stay in the office till late, but he'll never bring it home. So that is something which I found very inspiring, and I am also trying to incorporate it. Like I try and finish whatever I have to when I'm in the office, so that when I come back to my place, I have time for myself. So, and then when I grew up, APJ Abdul Kalam was a huge inspiration for me. Because at that time, I remember our organizations, ISRO and DRDO, they were achieving new heights. Like every week, almost every week, every month, we used to hear of some launch or some discovery or some major advancement in our defense sector. And the person behind it was APJ Abdul Kalam. So, and I used to like Saurav Ganguly as well when I was young, mainly because of the spunk he had and like the way he approached problems, like in their face, like he would never back down. Like he might lose, that's fine, but even when he's losing, like he'll never put his head down. So, so yeah, over a period of time, all these people, they have inspired me. And yeah, so I wouldn't say there's one single person. Okay. So I will send messages. Okay, Pavani is saying I'll send messages till you reply. But what is the message? Yeah. How much total expenses for coaching, sir? Okay, yeah. So it depends, you know. Like if you go to Delhi, and I think coaching in Delhi is costly because most of the people, they go to Delhi for preparation. So if you don't go for really exaggerated living quarters and like if you can manage your expenses, I think in 1 year within 1.5 lakh you can manage. But then, you know, that is something which I saw in 2016. So you need to account for inflation and the rise in prices and all that. So in 2016, 17, 1.5 lakh was sufficient. I think now it'll definitely increase a little bit. Like I had some money from my internship also. So I think that was one good thing. So I didn't have to depend on my parents completely. So that was one advantage. And like someone asked me also that if not IAS, then what, and all that. So I was going through this TV series by TVF about IAS. I think most of you guys have seen it as well. So in that there is an episode on this thing on having an option B, plan B. So I think that is something which all of us we should consider, because after I couldn't get through in my first attempt. There was some pressure from my family as well, and there was some societal pressure as well regarding this. So I think like all of us, we need to have some sort of backup plan as well, because getting a job now has become much more difficult than what it was even 2-3 years ago because of COVID and many other issues. So I think since it has become more difficult, the chances, the capability to take risk, that has also reduced. So in a good situation, yes, you can take as much risk as possible, and you know that you have a net behind you. But if the situation is not that good, you need to hedge your bets. You need to, make sure that you catch something. So I think like right now it's very important to have other options open as well. And the seats have also been decreasing over the years. So it's becoming more difficult to get into the civil services. See, eventually it's always there that, you just need one seat, and that is a very positive mindset to have. But along with the positive mindset, you also need to have a realistic mindset that, okay, you need one seat, but there are many other people who also need that one seat. And if you aren't capable of competing with them, so that doesn't mean that, that you don't deserve to succeed in life. You definitely deserve to succeed in life. It's just that you have to find another way to it, another pathway to it. And it might sound, a bit discouraging, but it's just a job. And it's not the be all and the end all. It's a good job, but it's just a job at the end of the day. Like, your happiness is what matters in the end. Okay. What are the facilities and challenges in Taiwan? Sampath Nayak. I think Taiwan is a wonderful place. Like, I think the people over there, they're very friendly. And I was there for nearly 2 years. I haven't had even one conflict in Taiwan. So initially, the greatest challenge was the language, because they don't speak English too much. But after we got through that initial hurdle of the language, I think life in Taiwan has been great. Like, obviously it was hectic because we had to learn the language and we had work in the office as well. But overall, I think it was a very positive experience for me, and especially because Taiwan handled the COVID crisis very well. So I used to get these messages from my friends, my batchmates who are posted in other countries that, oh, we can't go out, and it's so risky right now, and we are working from home and all that. So in Taiwan, at least, we didn't have to go through all of that. So like, now the situation has become a little serious, but for the major part of my stay in Taiwan, it was a very comfortable experience. I want to take anthropology as an optional subject. Is it really easy to crack? Anthropology is a good subject. Many people in my batch, they took up anthropology and cleared the exam. And I think Anthro has a very short syllabus also. It has one of the shorter syllabuses in the economics, as in the humanities optional section as well. So if you have some sort of background in it, I think you should go for it. Get good notes, and see, for humanities optional, the notes will always be much more than what is needed for you to clear the exam. So it doesn't matter from what source you get the notes, but make sure that you know how to prioritize which sections you are focusing on. There are 3,000. At which rank we will get IS? So I think for general till 100, 100 is a safe bet. Yeah. But I think the last rank in my batch was 220. Yeah, but please don't quote me on that, because I'm not really sure about it. And right now the seats have decreased, so I think it's more difficult also. How much interviewers? So generally, an interview is for 20 minutes, but they take their own sweet time. So if they feel that they're not able to understand you fully, then they might take more time. So I have heard of interviews which have gone on to 45-50 minutes as well. So yeah, there are many questions. Oh, it's actually not. Yeah, like, I wish I could answer all of your questions, but then like, I think the queries are much more than what time permits and what energy permits. And I think my batchmate Jyoti, She has also arrived, and she'll be taking on the baton from me. So, yeah, Ravi sir.
Yeah, thank you, Utpal. It's nice.
I can't hear you, Ravi sir.
You get the voice. Now it's fine, right? Am I audible?
90%. Connected to TATOP X0VU0.
Yeah.
Hello.
Thank you. Thank you, Utpal.
Yeah, I can.
Thank you very much, and giving a nice time, and your story is impressive, and especially your journey and your passion towards foreign service and international affairs, and you have chosen the optional also in the same way, and really you went into your own space, right? So it's really amazing to see you here, and all the best for your career also, right? From
Thank you
our
so much.
all Telugu people also, right? Yeah.
All the best to everyone, and also to you, Ravi sir. All the best for your new initiative.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Take care, everyone, and stay safe. Bye bye.